Good evening. On behalf of Humber College, I'd like to begin by congratulating all of this evening's inductees, truly special people, and a wonderful evening for them. It is my distinct honor to introduce 2016 inductee Mike Katz. I've been told I have 2 minutes to summarize Mike's impact during his 20-year career with Humber, an impossible task. However, I'll try to do my best. To begin, Mike is simply the best coach to have represented Humber College. As you can see in the program, Mike led our men's basketball program to an incredible 10 podium finishes at the CCAA Nationals, including 5 national titles. But Mike's impact went well beyond the court. He was a mentor, teacher, tutor, advisor, and at times surrogate parent. Along with our former athletic director, Doug Fox, Mike created an environment where our athletes grew and developed as individuals and succeeded off the court. My earliest recollections of Mike Katz go back to the 2000-2001 season. I began working at Humber that August, and I remember the buzz around the men's basketball program. Mike had just returned from representing Canada at the Sydney Olympics, where he was an assistant coach with our men's national team. That fall, a lifelong friend of Mike had approached him with the notion of shooting a documentary film on the Hawks that would follow the team during the season. And this was well before the era of reality TV. The documentary, entitled The Team, aired for 8 weeks on the CBC, and it allowed the Canadian public a first-hand account of how college players dealt with the responsibilities of school, family, basketball, and work commitments. The documentary delivered a powerful message and showed all facets of a truly outstanding coach. That year, Mike won his final CCAA championship on home court in a game with our arch rival, Sheridan. A storybook ending to an amazing year. Later that spring, Mike would be selected the first ever recipient of the CCAA Coaching Excellence Award, which annually recognizes coaching contributions to sport and to athlete development. We at Humber are grateful that Mike continues to mentor and support both our men's and women's basketball programs. A truly exceptional coach. Please join me in congratulating 2016 Hall of Fame inductee, Mike Katz.
Thank you, Ray, for that introduction. I've really enjoyed going towards the end because I've enjoyed the introductions by the people who have been inducting the recipients, and certainly their speeches have been terrific. And I learned a lot just from listening for the last 45 minutes. That documentary that Ray did refer to, I remember there was a coach who coached at Acadia, and he said that he'd watched some of the documentary. I said, well, how much did you watch of it? He said, I was working at the back, doing something in the back. My wife called and said, hey, come on over here. You think you got problems? Take a look at this. I thought that was pretty funny. So I just thought of one thing before, and that was, I've been asked over the years, what did you have a formula, or how did you kind of come to some kind of philosophy? And, I think I had it the first day I coached. That was my first coaching job, was at George Harvey High School in 1976. And I don't think it really altered much. And really it was based on my own experience as a player. I was played at University of Toronto just before Doug Fox, who you all know very well. He's part of that mortal enemy, Humber College. And I said, well, when I thought about it, I think that the players, the most important thing to the players was that they enjoy the experience. I never could understand when players in their 4th or 5th year didn't want to come back to play. Then I thought that the coach had failed that person, that teammate, that team. It was always important to me that the players enjoy the experience. And you had to figure that out on your own. But obviously having a sense of humor helps, but you had to keep the environment light over time. It's a long season. So I thought that was almost priority number one. The second was really to develop your players, get them better. Players want to get better. So as basketball evolved for me, you needed more assistants, so you would have people helping them. But it was always part of your job to develop the players, get their skill base higher. The other thing is players wanted to know the truth. And sometimes that's very hard for a coach to tell a kid why he wasn't playing and what he has to do. But they needed to know that so that they felt that if they did work on their game or their attitude, whatever it may be, they would get a chance to play. So that was pretty much it. Players wanted to know the truth. They wanted to have a good time, and it had to be very competitive. Players want to compete. And I'd add another thing over time. I realized that as a classroom teacher, which I was for many years, players don't want to hear a harangue. They don't want to hear a long speech. So give your instructions quick, make them precise, and move on. So that's the environment I felt that worked when I coached high school and right up until the end of my coaching career, which was at University of Toronto. So that's it for me in that end in terms of what I gleaned from all those years of coaching. I want to thank the Humber College people, certainly, who came tonight. Doug Fox was my first athletic director, and along with Pete Mayberry, offered me a job because at George Harvey had played a number of playoff games up at Humber, so they saw our teams compete. I didn't really have to interview. They offered the job, and I came home and told my wife, like, we're getting paid for coaching here. That's a big deal, and that made it important for me. To be recognized as a paid coach, and everybody in this room who has coached, it means something when you're paid for it. And in years of high school teaching, if you did coach, it was just really the labor of love, and put in a lot of hours and no compensation. So that was important. I had a great experience with Doug. It's very important that the coach gets along with the administration, especially the athletic director. And when Doug wasn't coaching the team, he gave great advice. Poor Doug. A coach is often as good as his assistant coaches, and one of the great pleasures I've had in coaching was the number of assistant coaches that I worked with. I was really, really happy and gratified to know that most of those relationships, almost all of them, were terrific. I keep up with them, and I want to thank Daryl Glenn, who's here today. He was an assistant with me at Humber. Then he went on to coach the Humber team, now at Seneca. And the other players that did show up tonight, Warwick Manners, who has been alluded to, he does have that ring, but he's not in the Hall of Fame yet. And Samson Downey, who I coached, who's now with the men's team, and Jim DePoe, a colleague of mine, and most recently a longtime friend and colleague, AJ Sharma, who just won a national championship with the Humber women's team, and they're all here today. Ray, I appreciate, I also worked for Ray when he was the director of golf management. I worked in that department, taught economics. When I moved from part-time in high school, then I went every other day at Humber, and then I became a full-time coach. So I was very fortunate to have full-time work at Humber as a coach and some teaching. And also Humber was a very important springboard for me to get involved in a national team. Because the other person who was really important to the commitment of excellence in basketball was Robert Gordon, the president, and he had arranged that the national team train at Humber and gave me the year off so I could apprentice with them in '94 with the national team. We went to the World Championships were in Toronto. That was my first experience at that level. And I think I was with the national team over almost 13 years. And a lot of that was because of the CCAA, for sure, because when you won national championships, all of a sudden, it didn't matter that it wasn't the CIS or the CIU at the time. People recognized a good program, and that got me a tremendous opportunity to be in the national team program. And as was mentioned, that was a great highlight of my career when we almost got to the medal round in Sydney in 2000. In 2000? I think so, yeah. So, the last person I have to acknowledge is my longtime partner, my wife. Her name is Deborah Nyman. She's over there. And she is a dramatic arts former teacher. She now teaches at the University of Toronto. But the game of basketball has changed her a lot. And I turned down an opportunity to go to the last Raptor game against Cleveland because I wouldn't miss a night watching a game with my wife, because it's more entertaining than anything I could experience. She's been a great support to me. She's loved the game. And the only time that she really didn't support me and my team was when we would play my son's team at McMaster. We did that at Humber. And somebody said after we lost a fairly close game to McMaster against Humber, said, "Mike, you don't seem too upset." I said, "Look, it's the best thing that could have happened." So my wife has been with me on my own basketball journey, and she's been with all my accomplishments and disappointments, and I love that support, Debbie. Thanks a lot. So that's it. That's all I got. Thanks very much.